Hello again, welcome to the final video of today. This is just a general new films I've watched recently I thought it'd be good to talk about. Again, because it's summer and it's hard to watch like serious films when it's this warm, you end up going to see some films that, are not that demanding, which means you can't really do full videos on them because there's not that much to say about them. Like, there's more to say about a bad film like Final Program than there is about any of these films, which are all better than Final Program. I'll start off with the best one, which is Spider-Man Across the Spiderverse, which came out in the last week or two. It's got some very good reviews. It's done very well. It's a very well-respected film. I enjoyed it a lot, but it's not perfect. I liked the first one more, which is Into the Spider-Verse. I thought that was a stronger film because it was a complete story. In this one, they do have the kind of sequel bloat at times where it's like much bigger, much more ambitious, and sometimes there's bits you can cut out. Really, that's the big thing. Is it's 2 hours 20, and it needs to be 2 hours. You have lost 20 minutes in this film quite easily. There is a sense in this film that the film goes on teensy bit too much in certain places that could have been lost. You could have lost some little bits and still get the idea of what they want to try to do. Just be a bit more coherent with the writing. Just bring it down a bit more, and it would have been. I think it's one of those things where I think the things that would have popped more if it was just a bit shorter. But so there was just bits you thought you don't need this. There's nothing here that you really need here, and it's not like one subplot or one scene. It's just much more like you get a sense that like getting from A to B sometimes they're taking a bit too long. During scenes, sometimes you feel that there's a bit of bloat here or there. It's not the one massively thing that's wrong about it. It's just like there's just little bits. It's like things that if you were in the first film and try to get people attention, keep going down, you'd have cut it out. And this time, because you knew you've got the attention, you can keep it in. It's that kind of thing. Especially happens at the end where there should have been faster cutting to suggest the mania of what was going on, and it felt it was a bit too leisurely, and it was like you could have lost quite a few minutes here quite easily and made the sequence stronger, and just given a sense of the characters' problems a lot simpler by just cutting faster and just having a bit more precision. And it's just that thing it goes through it. And there's a bit where they're showing the Spider-Verse and showing the home of all the Spider-Men, and it goes on a bit too long. And even though there's a lot of really cool stuff in there, there's a big chase through it, and it's like, we don't need this chase all. It's really cool, and you don't need it. And I've seen people point out it makes all the Spider-Man look stupid because Miles can beat them all, even if he's getting chased. And it's just like, it's that thing is like, it was a fun sequence, and if it wasn't in the film to sell the film and in advertising, you wouldn't have really noticed that you needed it. It would have been fine. It's that kind of thing. It's a big set piece, but it's not really a necessary set piece because there's other set pieces earlier on that are actually better than it, that actually have dramatic uh, moments. Like the early scene where Spider-Man versus the Spot, who's one of the villains, and it starts in this one store and it ends up spreading through the city. And it's a much better sequence because it's motivated because this villain is just getting used to his powers and it's getting more and more chaotic as Spider-Man's trying to keep him controlled. And Spider-Man's not particularly experienced either. And that creates a wonderful sequence. And it was perfectly paced. You got everything you wanted from it. And it gave you a lot of stuff so you could actually have some dialogue scenes for a while. So you didn't have to actually just throw more action scenes at the audience. That really worked. There's a sequence in the middle in this other alternative universe of Spider-Man dealing with a threat. And that worked really well too. It was like really quick, but got to the point every time. And it was like, and then we saw that compared to this other sequence, which was well done, but it was like, we don't need this sequence. Dramatically, you don't need this sequence. It could have been a good dialogue sequence, and you'd have got the point. or it could have been a much smaller, shorter sequence where half the city wasn't after him, and it would have been more suspenseful, and it would have got to the point with him just trying to hide and get back and cause distractions and get out. He could have done a much better scene, and it would have had a more impact. Because it leads, the thing is, from this one sequence, there's so the top that you jump to this other bit that's setting up the ending, and the film has to basically restart again. And it's because the audience is such a high this bit that's not really necessary. So the pacing's get a bit weird because it's like something you have to readjust really quickly. And I just, there's bits like that which the film has, is that there's like the sense of it's got so much going that we didn't, instead of things they could have cut out, it would have not been a problem. The film also has a cliffhanger, just like Fast X. There's a cliffhanger ending. It's a satisfying one, but it's, I'm not sure how many people knew there was a cliffhanger coming. I knew it was coming, and it's a good way to start, but I think it's one of those things that's like, as I said earlier, if this bit section been paced up a bit more, it would have been more effective, because you kind of get the ideas, all the ideas that are coming into play, and then they go really slowly to the final reveals and things that are like, that's I feel I'm watching something in slow motion when I should watch it at normal speed. Is that kind of feeling to it? It's like, it's well done, but I mean, quick on certain bits of it. It could have taken its time in the moment, so you really needed it to take its time. Instead, it's this kind of current of the last 20 minutes is going at a similar pace, where it needs to be more variance to actually make things of impact. It just feels like they haven't really paced it out properly, so it becomes all of one rather than different things going in different areas to try and get us to the ending. There's just that feeling of this sequence where it was like, it was coming off a big high of something that was over the top, and then it's like trying to reset itself. And I just think the last third of this film is much lower quality than the first two thirds. Even though there's lots of really cool stuff in there, it just feels like they took the brakes off and let them go a bit crazy in ways that did not help the film. But despite all that, the characters are good, they're very enjoyable. All the characters are there. The Jake Johnson Spider-Man for the first one's back, and he's too much of a comedy relief in this one. They make him too funny. He was always funny and goofy and a bit of a failure, but in this one he's still trying hard, but they overdo it slightly. I mean, some people have really complained about it. I'm not really complaining. I'm just saying it was a bit too much at times. But the atmosphere is terrific. All the visuals are wonderful. The different worlds are done in different art styles. They were wonderful. Spider-Punk, played by Daniel Kaluuya, I can't remember pronounce his name, in this heat. The guy from Nope. He's great as Spider-Punk. He's just this anti-authoritarian Spider-Man who hates everybody. I think everyone's a fascist, and he just goes to the multiverse to annoy the other Spider-Man, really, which is fun character, and he's a lot nicer than he tries to let on, and the stuff like that all work. There's lots of fun. There's another Spider-Man from Mumbai, New York, from university. He's a lot of fun. He's like, everything's perfect for him, and he's so egocentric. It's a lot of fun. So there's lots of really fun. Gwen Stacy's back. Spider-Gwen, she's really enjoyable in this, and her and Miles have an attraction, but also have complications throughout the film, which always keeps it interesting. But the things, I mean, focus on them more than some of the big stuff, it would have been a more satisfying film. I think it just sometimes they got a bit drunk on their own budget and didn't say, let's pull it back slightly. Which is that feeling later on. It's like you're going too far. Now you're trying to pull back, and it means you'll get extra 5-10 minutes of running time you don't need just because of going too far at one point. but it's still very enjoyable. It's still the best of the three films I'm going to cover. Now I'm going to Hypnotic, which is the Robert Reddick's film. Stars Ben Affleck. It's very basic release around, and it's enjoyable. It's not like it's it thinks it's smart. The film thinks it's smart because this idea of people who can do things with their minds and things like that. It can convince people that something's different from what it really is, and different powers and all these kind of X-Men type of things. And it's also conspiracy theory where what is reality and what's not. And Ben Affleck's a guy who's trying to find his daughter, and he's on the run. He starts off as a policeman, but ends up on the run pretty quick. And it's what is real, what's not real, who is real, who's trying to betray me. You know, that kind of paranoid thriller, very 70s influenced with technology as well. And it's one of those films, it's not as smart as it thinks, but it's still very enjoyable. It's that kind of film where it's like you've seen everything before in this film, including the end, which you can see a mile off. Everything you'll see before the character sees it. But despite all that, because we have all seen films like this, despite all that, it's still very enjoyable. It is basically pulp B movie. And the enjoyment of this film comes from the fact that the actors and the director are right on that. They're making a B movie. They're not trying to reinvent anything. I think some people didn't like this film, thought they were smarter than everybody with this film, and it was like, no, they're obviously making a B movie. You can tell just by some of the characters and some of the things they're doing with the characters. They're just having fun with this idea, and they're just being silly. There's so many plot holes when you come towards the end of how the plot works. It makes no sense. It's like there's a certain point where it's like we get to the point of some of this stuff you thought was real wasn't, and all the rest of it. When you get to that point, which you can see coming a mile off, at that point the film falls off a cliff logic-wise, but it still remains fun, even though it's no longer making total sense anymore. And it seems more inspired by films it's seen rather than taking the idea and extrapolating it in a way a written sci-fi story would, instead of just what movies have I seen. It's that kind of thing. But despite that, there's still got a charm to it that actually works quite nicely. It's got a kind of enjoyability to the ridiculousness, how ridiculous the whole thing is. Ben Affleck's fun as a lead because he knows what film he's in. He's not trying to win an Oscar, he's playing a genre specific character. Will Fichtner as a villain's a lot of fun as well. Some of the supporting actors are a lot of fun. You'll see people come pop in for a scene or two just to have a enjoyable little scene or two, and that's it. There's just lots of things going on with it that's, you know, nice bit of nonsense is the best way to describe it. It's over 90 minutes. It does what you want from what is basically a Saturday afternoon film. So that's Hypnotic. Definitely give it a shot if you want to see a big dumb movie. Then know it's a big dumb movie. You know. So it's also the thing is the production company collapsed after they made it, so it was barely released as well. So it didn't matter what it did at this point. We've now got Transformers: Rise of the Beasts, which is Transformers 7, I think. I took my nephew to see this one on Spiderverse, and basically I would never have gone and seen the film without. So I was showing my nephew it for. He'd never seen a Transformers on the big screen, basically, and it's pretty much what you expect. No more Michael Bay, which means some of the shots aren't as crazy as the Michael Bay type of shots, which is either a good or a bad thing depending on the point of view. Now, I sometimes like the Bay stuff and sometimes I don't. It is silly, it is bombastic, it is ridiculousness. And sometimes he can put it together in a way that I enjoy. And other times I was like, what the hell are you doing? Kind of thing. This film doesn't do that stuff, so it's good in a sense you can tell what's going on all the time. It's bad because the pace, it's just like a bunch. But taking that stuff away, all it shows you is just a bunch of robots fighting each other with no stakes. And that's kind of becomes really obvious really quickly watching the film. There's no stakes to anything's going on here. And it's pretty much, it's a mediocre film. It's a 2-hour film. It should be an hour and a half. The plot's only an hour and a half of plot, and it's a definite film that there's a half hour worth of footage in there that should have been deleted. Because like every scene, either it's an action scene or a dialogue scene, every scene is not cut to pace. It's cut to, I like this, I'll keep it in. I like this, I'll keep it in. There's so many scenes that should have been either cut completely or cut in half, or there's lots of little bits and bobs that is self-indulgent. And the film, every time there's an action scene or there's a chase scene, it always feels bloated and always feels like this should have been done half the time. And you only had about 3 or 4 actual stunts here. It should have been done quicker. There's no excuse for how long this sequence is. Especially bad in the first sequence, which takes place at a museum where there's the good robots and the bad robots. And I'm talking about the first Transformers scene. There's a earlier action scene which takes about 2 minutes. And it's not worth noting. But this one, it's outside a museum, bad robots with good robots. And it goes on and on and on. And you're like, I should be bored in an action scene. Like, what's going on? Like, this is going on forever. And it's like, they're fighting, basically they're fighting over this one object. So it's like they're playing rugby with each other. It's like robots playing rugby, trying to get this one object. One side's got it, the other side's got it. And they're just big machines clobbering each other. So it's just like watching a rugby scrum that turns into a violent mess with giant robots. And there's some humans running around as well when you don't really care. I mean, the humans are fine in this film. They're enjoyable. The actors are fine. Some of the dialogue they're given are pretty rough, but they do their best with it. I mean, the thing is, they're not Shia LaBeouf bad of just annoying the hell out of you, and they're not Mark Wahlberg so bad it's funny as hell of the last two B Transformers. It's just somewhere like it's competently done, and they're fun actors, but they're not given anything to do. So you don't really care that much about the humans. It's just like, it's human stuff. The film gets better as it goes on, though, at least a little bit, in a sense of they go from the New York to South America, and you go through all these different areas of these different towns that you've never been to before in a big movie. So you've got all these like South American towns and villages and things, and it's interesting. You've got all these old bits of architecture, some Aztec architecture that's really enjoyable to see. But then with Transformers running around them and these like robot creatures who come from another planet for some reason. One of them's voiced by Ron Perlman, which is always fun. The other one's Michelle Yeoh, who's in it playing a wise bird, robot bird. Yeah, that occurs somehow. I know that stuff's enjoyable, but again, it's too long. It's like when I was watching it, and it was like scene after scene of dialogue, and my nephew put over some of this stuff's pretty boring. And I'm like, yeah, it is. Again, it's just like cut some of it down. Just cut it down a little bit, and you'll be fine. Again, this is like half an hour of deleted footage in the film. Ultimately, it was like this should have been gone. Like, who was watching the pre-visit and saying, "Oh yeah, having this on 5 minutes longer, it should have." Is a great use of our money. Well, this effects budget. It's just so much of that constantly. Like you've got the point of the fight, but we're going to have a bit more fight, a bit more fight. And that's the problem with a lot of fight scenes in action movies. It's like you get the same thing again and again, but they keep on going with the same fight moves again and again. It's like, that's not exciting. It's variations exciting. This is not exciting. And they don't get it because it's basically the same moves again and again. And without the Michael Bay shots, that crazy shots, all it pretty much proves is these Transformers are terrible fighters. They're just awful. And they just beat each other like drunk wrestlers most of the time. And it's not that exciting. There's a big fat battle scene at the end. They're all fighting each other, and the camera's moving around a bit more. and there's some stupid sci-fi plot stuff in there that's coming and written by a 5-year-old in a sugar rush. And none of it makes much sense. But some of the visuals are nice, but it's like shot after shot of repetition and action that doesn't move on and get the idea of, oh, we've done this bit, now do something else. It's just that's the same stuff again and again and again. Repeatedly. That's what the film feels like. Just repeat. And let's get this hour-and-a-half film to 2 hours. So it was the one I'd at least fun with out of the 3 films. I much preferred Across the Spiderverse. I even preferred Hypnotic, which didn't have the problem of the bloat. It was knowingly stupid. This film doesn't realise how stupid it is. Transformers doesn't get it. Gets the idea that it's based on a toy line, but it doesn't really get how dumb some of the plot is and how you should try and keep moving fast so one notices. But there's some nice things. I like the actors. I like some of the visuals when you get the Transformers in South America. But the rest of it just seems like it's been done before, and it's like I think you need to get a good action director in here to actually do Transformers in interesting ways. You can't just give it to somebody who doesn't know action that well, is not that experienced in action. You need to actually give it to somebody who can make you care. I don't think you really can care about these things because they're just big, stupid robots, and they've all pretty much it's robots fighting robots, and it's like, who cares who wins, really? You know, I'm old school. I prefer giant robots fighting kaijus or something like Pacific Rim. That's more enjoyable than anything in this film because at least you feel there's some stakes. This one is just like even when they kill a character off, you know they're coming back because it's a prequel, so the character was in these other ones. So it's like there's no stakes. You're just waiting for stuff to happen that you know is going to happen. As the whole thing is like this thing can get its home, but it's set in 1994, which means there's still another 5 films after this on the timeline, which means they're not getting home. And it's just like, oh God. It's like, don't you see, like, putting these things in and making a big thing about something that's obviously not going to happen? It's just a waste of time. There's also Unicron, which is this giant planet-eating world, basically, that turns up at the beginning, turns up at the end, in a very basic plot line. You know it's going to get defeated. They're going to destroy the thing that allows it to travel from one part of the universe to the next to come and eat the Earth. You know it's going to be destroyed before it gets here. It does, and it's like, well, that was a non-threat. Unicron was played by Orson Welles in the Transformers movie in the 80s. It's played by nobody, I think, in this one. There's a voice that's vaguely like menacing, but it's pretty boring. And you know, it's just this film was just as stupid. I mean, the end is basically an end of one of the Doctor Who David Tennant specials, where they have to a planet's coming through from another part of the universe, and we have to blow this thing up to save the world. It's like this is Doctor Who did it better with far less money. So yeah, Transformers can give a miss. Really, it's because I mean, basically, if you're over 10 and you're not drinking heavily, it's going to be pretty boring. So that's me for now. As I said, it's too warm to put any lights on or the rest of it. The videos might be sporadic for a while because it's like watching stuff that in this weather and then doing videos. So I'll see how it goes. I'm not promising anything in the next few weeks while we try and go through this heat wave. But that's me for now. I hope you enjoyed it, and that's it over. Bye.